Hello everybody, Loremaster of Sotek here, back with another multiplayer game for Multiplayer Tuesday. So without further ado, let's just hop right into it and take a look at this game that I played against someone from my Discord, the Crumbled Schnitzel. Schnitzel, something like that. I can't remember if there was an in or not, but he'll be playing in today or this week's Friday tournament, so you'll get to see him there. But he wanted to practice for a tournament he had last week, so I thought, or he asked if I wanted to play some games. I said yes, and we actually had a bunch of really good games. So here's the first one. We've got 2 units, or I've got 2 units of Felbats. I'm bringing the vampire counts. 3 units of zombies. I've got the Red Duke up on a zombie dragon, and he's got all of his abilities. I've got the Potion of Strength, and then I've got Raise Dead, Van Hal's Dance Macabre, and Invocation of Nehek. Then I've got 3 units of Skeleton Spearmen. I've got 2 units of Graveguard with great weapons, 2 units of Graveguard with shields, one of which is the Sternsman. Then I've got 2 units of Blood Knights bringing up my rear. Meanwhile, over on Crumbled's side with the Tomb Kings, he's got 2 units of Nehekara Horsemen, 2 units of Skeleton Horseman Archers. He's got a Screaming Skull Catapult protected by the Eyes of the Desert. And then he's got the Chosen of the Gods, Great Bow Shabti Regiment of Renown. He's got 3 units of Skeleton Spearmen, 2 units of Skeleton Warriors, 1 unit of Tomb Guard with Halberds, and Nehekaran Warriors. And then to make up his leadership, he's got Cetra the Imperishable up on his Nehekaran War Sphinx. And he has, let's see, what spells did he bring? He's got Incantation of Protection and Incantation of Cursed Blades. And then he's got all of his items. So he's got the Crown and the Blessed Blade of Patra. And then the Lich Priest only has Spirit Leech, so it's just a Death Snipe. So let's get into it. So already, the Cav are winding around my armies. We've got the Chosen of the Gods opening up shots into the Red Duke, which is, of course, going to do quite a bit of damage. But I'm just intending to fly over him to basically... if you can get above a ranged unit, you could just kind of move back and forth so that they're not able to hit you. And since there's so few ranged units, I'm not too worried about taking too much damage from that. My Felbats do dive down to fight the catapult. I did not notice the Eyes of the Desert until just about now. But I do get the Red Duke behind the Chosen of the Gods. Go ahead and get off a summon of zombies to try and tie these guys up in melee so they stop shooting for a bit. As well as popped an invocation on myself earlier to heal myself a little bit. Way back here, we see that there are little fights going on. Screaming Skull Catapult is firing, but here I'm going to get a really, really nice Dragon Breath right into the flank of these Tomb Guard, which is just going to eviscerate them. Kills 49 models, over half the unit killed instantly. Another Spirit Leech goes down the Red Duke, while I counter with another Invocation of the Heck, trying to minimize the damage I'm taking. Over here we had some really nice Cav charges into my zombie line, but because the Nehekaran Horsemen are having a little bit trouble disengaging, I do manage to catch one of them with my Blood Knights. I'm ignoring the archers for now because I don't really care how much damage he does to my infantry. I can always heal it up, or since he's mostly shooting zombies, it's just, whatever, they're trash. I do commit some Felbats onto the Screaming Skull Catapult to try and stop it from firing, because it does do, it does have the Discourage effect and can also kill a decent amount of troops. They actually put quite a beating on my, with the Chosen of the Gods helping out, they actually did quite a bit of damage to the Tithe, which I don't really care that much about, but still, if I can minimize the amount of effectiveness he gets out of that unit, the better. So over here, Cetra does fully commit to a fight. I do start pulling back the Blood Knight so I can hopefully get a counter charge while he probably helps out against my infantry. I do pop Foe Seeker to get the Red Duke around. I consider coming down on the Chosen of the Gods, but I see that Crumbled is doing a really, really good job of just guarding all of his... This War Sphinx is so fast on foot, I don't want to risk, getting caught in a bad situation. Over on this far flank, though, I do get a really nice charge of the Blood Knights and pretty much tear it apart. I do drop the Red Duke. I pop Overcast Invocation. I get Van Hell's Dance Macabre on myself and the Potion of Strength, and I just go ham into Cetra. And I also get a really nice rear charge in on him with the... and I also hit him with Elsif, and then I get a big charge with the Blood Knights. So we're just going ham on each other at this point. I'm trying to do as much damage as I can, and although I'm getting off some really nice hits, unfortunately my dragon does get turned around trying to fight these skeleton warriors. So whenever you're facing the wrong way, your melee defense is basically cut in half. So I decided to go ahead and get the hell out of dodge because this just did not turn into a good situation. Spirit Leech, another Spirit Leech is on me. Once again, though, I do have some healing left that I can get from using the blood or just summoning undead or whatever I want to do. So I do start flying around looking for good places to land. Meanwhile, my Blood Knights do come in on the catapult to go ahead and try and take it offline. It is guarded by spearmen, but what I'm really wanting to do is get back to the Chosen of the Gods, but obviously that's going to take some work. Since I did abandon my guys over on this far flank, they were destroyed by charges from the cavalry, and I do have bow shots coming in against the Red Duke, but I do go ahead, come down here and land to wipe out this unit of skeleton warriors so that I can start surrounding the Tomb King army. But the Red Duke is taking a ton of damage. The Red Duke, so I am pretty wounded at this point, but I do go ahead and charge at the Priest of Death so I could do some damage. But already, Crumbled is got pretty decent micro. He's already spotted me with Cetra, and I realize that it's time for me to go ahead and evacuate. So I'm still being fired at, taking tons of damage. I divert some of my skeleton spearmen over that way. I've got Graveguard coming in on Cetra. The Eyes of the Desert are fully committed in this really big fight over here, joining the Ushabti, and they are doing a pretty good job cutting down my Graveguard with great weapons and my skeleton spearmen. On this far flank, my Graveguard are doing really well against these skeleton spearmen. I've got the Red Duke still flying around. At this point, I actually pull him really far back because I'm only at 500 health. So I just fall him all the way back out of range because I realize that I have vastly superior infantry at this point and cav. I do manage to get a really nice catch on the Chosen of the Gods with these Blood Knights, and I'm doing as much damage as I can. I do get rear charged by the Eyes of the Desert, who are anti-large armor piercing with their halberds, so that's going to hurt quite a bit. But I get another charge in on the Chosen of the Gods from behind with the Blood Knights, and Cetra charges in to fight me as well, which I'm fine with. So at that point, the Chosen of the Gods are dead. So now I can bring the Red Duke back in. I do go ahead and pop another invocation from the heck of myself, trying to get to my healing cap. And now I can start heading back into the fray because the most dangerous archer unit is gone, especially because all the Nehekaran horseman archers are pretty much out of ammo. Here, this unit comes in for a charge. I do turn around in time to not get a rear charge, but I still get hit pretty hard. Cetra just run in against me and starts tearing into my Graveguard, which he very much excels against. I do fall back my Blood Knights a little bit. One of them has been wiped out by the Eyes of the Desert, but I do manage to charge in my Blood Knights in a counter charge, which they should be able to overwhelm them. They have much better stats. Here I get hit with another Spirit Leech, but I pop Foe Seeker and Elsif, which allows me to catch the Lich Priest of Death and do a pretty good amount of damage to him. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to kill him because Cetra is guarding him. So now I'm trying to look for places I can be useful that are far away from Cetra and don't land me in the middle of a big archer unit. Here I do try and get a Dragon Breath off on the Lich Priest of Death, but since I can't effectively draw a line of sight to him, I don't breathe. So I aim at Cetra instead, and thankfully he holds still long enough for me to do a really substantial amount of damage, and that triggers his curse, which thankfully hits mostly just the Sternsman. It does finish off 2 or 3 units of undead. My undead, I think it got a Graveguard with Great Weapons unit, but they were probably going down in a minute anyway. So at this point, Sternsmen are still doing really well. They've only lost 7 unit models, so their regeneration is going to be getting a lot of good mileage. They do charge into these skeleton spearmen, cutting them off. Meanwhile, my Blood Knights are trying to wear out and finish off the Eyes of the Desert. I am keeping the Red Duke pretty much on bodyguard duty against Cetra, looking for any possible Elsifs I can get off to maybe get him in a bad situation. The Blood Knights are fighting against Cetra the Imperishable, and I land on the Death Wizard one more time and bite his head right off, and down he goes. So at this point, the Eyes of the Desert, actually, the single Eye of the Desert guy manages to hit me hard enough to stagger me, so I get hit in the butt by Cetra. And at this point, I am at ridiculously low health, but since the balance of power is a little bit in my favor, thankfully the Red Duke stabilizes at 6 leadership despite only having 469 health. though he is wavering considerably, and if he goes negative, he is super dead. So I'm trying to keep him around my boys, but at this point I do get enough magic to summon another wave of zombies, which of course is going to proc some healing for my army, and it summons of course a big old unit that can help out in this nasty situation. I get a rear charge with my Blood Knights, which wipes out what is left of the Skeleton Spearmen, and now all that's left is the Skeleton Horsemen. So I go ahead and dive in on Cetra after I pop Elsif on him, making him vulnerable to my attacks. I have Foe Seeker going, and we're just popping everything. He buffs himself with Incantation Cursed Blades. He misses with that attack. He misses with that attack, and with all the rear charges coming in, army losses do kick in, and Cetra is cast down. So that was actually a super intense game. The crumbled schnitzel. It was schnitzel, I was right. Oh, it's crumbed, not crumbled. There we go. I was adding an L. But in any event, it was a really good game. We played a series of 3 games. I'll be putting another one of the matches up on Thursday. Unfortunately, I didn't save I misclicked and didn't save the second game. We played a best of 3. This was the 3rd game. The first game and this I'll show on Thursday. The second game I'll talk about later, probably on Thursday. But it was a really good match. As far as both teams went, I think he made really, really good effectiveness of his infantry, Cetra, the Lich Priest. The Eyes of the Desert actually performed pretty well. I think the Screaming Skull Catapult against the Vampire Counts is not necessarily the best pick, just because it struggles to have a large enough area of effect to do meaningful damage. The thing I like about the Screaming Skull Catapult is that it has the Discourage aura on its attacks, and it also does magic damage, which can be helpful against certain armies, but I don't really like it much against things like the Vampire Coast or the Vampire Counts, just because the Discourage aura doesn't really help you that much in getting the undead to crumble or disintegrate with the way disintegration works right now. But that being said, it got an okay amount of kills, though most of that was on like the Tithe and other stuff. Of course, the Vampire Counts do really excel at shutting down like ranged units, like catapults. Chosen of the Gods got taken offline a few times, though they managed to hang in there for a bit. Ultimately, though, I think what really got victory for me against Schnitzel in this match was that I think he had a bit of a hard time figuring out what to do with his Nehekar Horsemen. He got an early game charge against my zombies in the front line and then immediately fell back. But the thing about when you're doing that, especially against a unit like zombies who are not densely packed and there's like 120 models and they're fairly heavy infantry models, is that they will drag down your cav. So you have to be giving constant micro orders to make sure your unit evacuates properly, which neither of these guys did. And both these Nehekar Horsemen got caught super early and wiped out, which was a shame because they would have been super useful in the late game or the mid game when I was having to like micro on the Red Duke and I had the Blood Knights going around the rear and stuff. These guys would have been so great for cycle charging just the little fights going on between like my Spearman and his Spearman, or my Graveguard, and just charging them in the back to disrupt their formation, do a ton of damage, pull back, and just keep doing it over and over. If he could have been able to do that, it would have been super helpful and powerful, but unfortunately he wasn't able to because they got wiped out super early. The Skeleton Horseman Archers were another unit that I think didn't get as much mileage as they probably could have. They were used very well in that they avoided me, used all their ammunition and stuff, but they ended up using a ton of their ammo to wipe out zombies, when it probably would have been better for them to be turned off fire at will and only have it turned back on once they were behind the zombies. That way they could focus their fire on like the Skeleton Spearmen or the Graveguard or the Blood Knights or even the Fellbats. I think would have been a really good pick out. But in any event, it was a really good game. There were great kills on both sides. It came down very much to the wire. The only thing that I really had super securing me at the end was the 2 units of Graveguard, especially the Stearnsmen. But at the same time, if I had lost the Red Duke, that might have given Cetra enough leeway to keep fighting until he actually died. And if that had happened, I could have very well lost, because the Nehekar War Sphinx is more than capable of killing off 2 units of Graveguard. But in any event, thank you all for watching. I'll see you back Thursday for the next multiplayer game, or tomorrow for another episode of the Ikit Claw series. So thanks for watching. See you next time.